For those recovering from alcoholism and substance abuse problems, the festive season is particularly tough. If you're contemplating picking up a drink or are thinking about using again, know that there are many toll-free 24-hour helplines. Just voicing your concerns to a counselor will make an incredible difference to how you're feeling. Here to discuss alcohol and substance abuse are SADAG spokesperson and board member Nkini Pasha and Shade Giliberti, a mental health ambassador for SADAG. A very warm welcome to you both.
Thank you very much.
You got your surname right.
Like a pro.
Thank you so much for coming. Nkini, I would like you to start. And what I would like you to start with is, where do you draw the line between having a good time and having a drink and then it becomes a problem?
I think, let's face it, for a lot of people, drawing that line is actually the most challenging thing ever, because when you binge drink, very often people don't realize that that actually is a problem, or it could be a problem. So if you are becoming addicted to any type of, of substance, very often there is that denial as well. That I am actually not addicted, or I am, drinking, but I'm still functional, but there is a problem, so you don't realize when you cross over to the other side. And I think also, because the festive season provides a lot of people with reasons to party, with reasons to consume more, all in the name of the festive season. So people tend to then cross over to the other side without even realizing that. So it's very important, I always say, to people that you need to look at yourself. You need to actually determine what is best for you and not go with the flow, as, very often it's kind of like expected during that time of the year. Having those withdrawal symptoms, that really takes you into a deep depression. So that is actually very, very serious, and it's quite dangerous.
Shade, I want to bring it to you because I think this is a role that people are not accustomed to seeing you in, talking about mental health. So before I even get into asking you some of your personal issues and your personal story, just give us a little bit of background on how you got involved in this and why people are seeing you talking about this topic.
Well, I suffer from depression, so it was quite an easy connection to make with SADAG and myself. I deal a lot with their mental health issues, and especially during Teen Suicide Prevention Week, but not just that week that happens in February. Throughout the year, I go to talks and I go to their offices and I'm, take calls and all of that kind of stuff. And I just try to push mental health because it's quite important for us, especially in this country, to understand that mental health does exist. It's not, it's not a problem, but we need to find a way to deal with it. And it's a problem in the sense that we don't understand it. Not a problem in the sense that there's something wrong with you, like, she's got mental issues or whatever, but we don't understand it. There's a lot of cultures in this country that don't understand mental health, understand depression and all of that kind of stuff. So for me, it's very important to put it out there, especially because we also have a really high teenage suicide rate that goes up every year, and it's very close to me. So I want to be able to kind of change that in the country.
Nkini had spoken about going with the flow, and I think that happens a lot, especially with young people. So speak to us a little bit about that, about going with the flow, talking about this issue of substance abuse, and what you would say to young people of, it's okay to party, but then again, drawing that line.
I think, like it was said, it's very hard to draw that line because there are also different things that come into it, especially when you're a lot younger, peer pressure and your mates and the fact that, it's festive season, I've just finished school or whatever the story is, I have a month to go absolutely crazy. And there's nothing wrong with going out and having those parties, but there's no need to do it every single day. Do you know what I mean? And that's where the drawing the line thing does definitely come in. So we just need to realize that it's like this typical saying, too much of a good thing is not a good thing. So we can party, but partying Monday to Monday is not going to be a good thing because you're going to wake up the following Monday and it's all just going to overload. You're going to feel really terrible because your hangover's there and you have a headache and you don't feel good about yourself. Your body starts to get all heavy. And so we just got to realize, especially as young people, is party it up, of course. You've had a tough year, give yourself that break, but you don't have to go overboard. There is no reason to go overboard.
Nkini, I'd like to speak about on a broader level almost, when you talk about, sometimes you can talk about the triggers, because here we are, we're talking about the festive season, and that is, it's going to happen. A lot of people are going to drink because it is party season. But now you're going into a new year, and then you have that carrying into the new year. What would be the triggers that you would say people should probably look out for so that it doesn't become a problem?
And look, I think maybe the first thing to say is that, let's define this drug that we're talking about. Alcohol, it's a downer. So although a lot of people think it's actually, yes, it makes you high, you feel, less inhibited, you can do things that you thought you would not, usually do. So it gives you that boost, that oomph. However, it as a drug, it actually is a downer. So what then happens is that when that effect comes out of your system, you then go into a depression. You have depression-like symptoms, those withdrawal symptoms. So you feel down, you feel, your mood changes. And you also have some physical symptoms, as Shade has indicated, you have a headache, you really don't feel, your appetite is, you can't eat, you are restless, you are not even able to sleep properly. So it does then impact on your physiological and physical being. So that is what then happens as what alcohol, the effect that alcohol has on you as a person. But then looking at what then happens after this whole, parting up a storm, now in January, I think for a lot of people, just getting into the new year and really having this pressure to say, what is my plan? What do I intend achieving in this new year? Everybody around you talks about, having these New Year's resolutions. And you may be sitting there and thinking, gee, what are my plans actually? I don't have resolutions. And those that also have resolutions have this immense pressure to come up with almost unrealistic resolutions, and really, in turn, making it harder for themselves to really navigate, their way into the year. So that as well is that pressure can actually trigger somebody getting into, a type of a mental disorder. And depression or anxiety disorders are the ones that most likely will come to the fore. So really then the person will start demonstrating or, showing the signs and symptoms associated with those mental illnesses.
Shade, I want to bring you in on this because let's just talk about, we've talked about drawing the line, we've talked about, that going with the flow, and people might be saying, you're making too big a deal of this, So what are your concerns though, when we're talking about substance abuse, when you're talking about this particular subject, what stands out for you as, this is something that we should be talking about and should be paying attention to?
Well, I think the whole topic as a whole, substance abuse is something we should definitely all be talking about because it destroys oneself. In that, it destroys your relationships with your friends, with your families, and all of that kind of stuff. And also, it's a huge health issue. We look at the festive season, we look at January. We have so many road accidents that happen in our country because of the way people drive, most of them under the influence. And the thing is that you may be a sober driver, but people on the road aren't. It always just comes back to that kind of stuff. And it goes back to what you said about how, when you do drink or when you do take any substance, it gives you that extra oomph, that boost. You want to, you do things that you wouldn't generally do, Dutch courage and all of that kind of stuff. And all good and dandy, but what then? Do you know what I mean? And for me, it just comes back to the relationships that you have with friends, the relationships that you have with your family. When you start to abuse something and take advantage of a certain situation, you lose perspective of everything around you and everything close to you, and you lose perspective of yourself as well.
So how do you, I'm going to bring this to you, how do you, if a person and you see they are in this spiral, we were speaking about it before the show started, is you don't go to somebody and say, listen, you've got a drinking problem.
Yeah.
So how do you bring the issue up if you do see somebody who's drinking a little bit too much that goes beyond just partying and having a good time?
Yeah.
How do you start that discussion?
Yeah. I think, I would love to answer that question, but I think it's important because we seem to be focusing only on alcohol. And alcohol is not the only substance that is abused or that can be addictive. There's a whole range of of substances. Dacha. And in fact, I should say that also that there are substances that are legal and others that are illegal. So for example, alcohol, yes, is legislated, it's legal. Substance, cigarettes, you have that nicotine, in cigarettes, it is a substance that is very, very addictive to a lot of people. So other legal, drugs, for example, stuff that is prescribed to you, or even your cough mixture, it is a legal substance, but that also, it falls under the category of drugs. And then, of course, you've got on the one side, you've got your dacha, you've got, your nyaope, which is actually taking prominence in our townships and certainly in our schools. So I think
You need to explain that, because I think some people might not know what you're talking
Oh, okay.
about.
So basically, it's a whole concoction. This is a sort of a homemade type of a drug where they would, put, antiretrovirals, things like Retex, in it. So it's a whole concoction of all these chemicals.
What would it be? Would it be a pill? Would it be?
Well, they mix it together, and they. I mean, I think it depends how, but from what I gather, a lot of youngsters, what they do is that then they would smoke that. So they mix all of these things and then make a nice concoction, and then obviously burn it up and then smoke it. But even things like your petrol, your benzoline. So there's a whole range of chemicals that are drugs that people essentially can actually utilize to get the high, that effect. So I think it's important that we don't only focus our discussion on alcohol. So going back in terms of then how do you then assist somebody who may be having a problem in terms of abusing any of these substances that I have mentioned. Remember, an addict will never really admit that, I have a problem. And even to many people that, come Thursday, Friday, they binge, they go out partying, they drink Thursday, Friday until Sunday. They don't regard themselves as having an alcohol problem. Or maybe utilizing any of the other drugs. And I think we should also mention, things like heroin, cocaine, all of that, that is easily available. So it's important that, it doesn't mean that if you actually utilize these drugs and you are still functional, you're able to get up on Monday morning and go to work, that you are actually not addicted. So you can still be addicted and you can still be abusing that substance. Now, importantly, dealing with this, with a loved one or a family member that really is going through this, most importantly, you need to actually show that respect.
I'm going to stop you there, because we're going to talk about family and relationships and all of that and how it impacts in a moment. But for now, how does substance abuse and addiction affect our relationships? And if you're addicted, what are the possible treatment options? We'll be discussing that next.